Recording started.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this Epic Ed web conference, Preparing for Common Core Online Assessment, featuring Rich Kaestner of CoSN and Doug Levin from SETDA. The Epic Ed community is just celebrating its 1-month anniversary. We are a part of the Connected Educators Project. Together, the Friday Institute for Educational Innovation in the College of Education at North Carolina State University and the Consortium for School Networking have partnered to bring you this online community of practice focused on digital transition. During today's session, we'll be using a number of the features of Blackboard Collaborate. We may have a poll or two. You see the area where you will indicate your responses for any polls. If you have a microphone and have any questions at the appropriate time when you're asked to pose the questions, you'll be recognized and you can click on that talk button to pose your questions, or you can also use the chat box to type questions or comments at any point in time. And here's a closer look at both of those. Now, if you do want to pose a question audibly, we ask you click on the raised hand icon that you see depicted there on the left-hand side of the screen. We'd like to know where everyone's joining us from this afternoon, so if you would please, using the whiteboard tools to the left of the main screen here, if you will click on the pencil icon there, it exposes for you a palette where you can choose a color and the size of the stroke. If you would go ahead and choose a different stroke size and maybe a different color if you like, and just make a mark on the map to let us know where you're joining us from this afternoon. So I'm going to choose a red color here, and Jackie's already done it for me, so I won't do that. You see where we're located there in North Carolina, in the central part of the state. We've got somebody on the West Coast, but I can guess who that is, and some folks from Virginia, a couple folks in North Carolina. Excellent. Notice that we added the world map on here because in recent web conferences we've had participants coming from other parts of the world. So I want to go ahead now at this time and turn our session over to Rich Kaestner of CoSN and Doug Levin of SETDA. And they're going to lead us through a presentation about Common Core Online Assessment. So, gentlemen, we want to welcome you to this Epic Ed web conference, and the mic is all yours.
Thanks. This is Rich Kaestner. Just to get things started, I was curious from the folks who are participating as to how aware you are of the upcoming Common Core standards that are in 45 states, and more particularly the online assessment requirements that are coming up. Whether you've heard about the online assessments, if so, have you looked into it, have you done some research, what have you done there in that regard? So if I understand how to use the tool here correctly, up on the top left, right where you saw the emoticons and the hand raise, so forth, you see just to the right of that a little A with a pull-down bar, and you can click on A, B, C, or D. And if you would do that, we'll wait just a moment for you. Okay, so we see everything from A, B, and C. See if we see anything else here. Mostly A, B, and C. So anywhere from not having heard too much about this yet to at least having put a little thought to it. There's the chart now. Thank you. Okay, why don't we get started here, and we'll see whether we can get some feeling as to what this whole Common Core assessment is all about. If I can remember how to move slides now, I forgot. It's up on the right, I think. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so once again, I'm Rich Kaestner. I'm a project director with CoSN, and really pleased to have Doug Levin here from SETDA. and he's the executive director there and has been very involved in this project and certainly knows a lot more about it than I do. So I'm just going to do a little introduction, and then we'll get things rolling with Doug. So what is this Common Core online assessment all about? Well, the Common Core, of course, is adopted by 45 states and also District of Columbia and 3 territories. It is focused on language arts, English language arts, and math standards. The online assessments are part of this whole piece, and they're starting in the 2014-15 school year. And so those of us who are district technology leaders need to be aware of the fact that there's going to be online assessments and need to be doing what we have to do to prepare to have those assessments actually conducted within the schools. As a lot of you are probably involved already in some sort of digital transition or looking at bring your own technology or providing devices of one sort or another. And so as we look at this whole transition to digital in the classroom, we have to also be aware of what is required for the online assessments, because that may or may not work out well with your overall plan for moving to digital in the classroom. And so this ties in very closely with digital transition and is a piece that needs to be considered as you look at digital transition within your district. Okay. A couple things I want to just bring up, just kind of an intro, and then I'll bring Doug online to get into some of the considerations here. But there needs to be investment in devices and in networking infrastructure and so forth in order to bring everybody up to line. Some districts may be in good shape for this and some may not. So everybody needs to be able to evaluate what's going on in their individual district. The other thing that I would mention is I think there's like 30 states that already do some sort of online assessments. Their requirements may or may not match up well with the Common Core. And so if you're in one of those states that already does some online assessments, you still really need to review what you have with respect to what is required for the Common Core online assessment and make sure that things are going to work all right. One example may be the fact that the Common Core is going to be grades 3 through 12, and if you're maybe just doing online assessments in secondary school or whatever, then elementary schools need to be up to speed too. So it's a kind of a bottom to the top grade-wise assessment, and so the technology needs to be in place in all areas. What will be required will be some approved computers and devices and so forth. There's some guidance out there right now as far as new purchases are concerned, and more information coming. The same thing with the networking requirements. We hope to see some more information on that. But as a tech leader within the district, you need to understand what those computers are going to be and what is going to be required from a networking and internet connection. The other piece is the devices. You need to be able to lock down the devices, so forth, and so that we don't get some wandering around the websites during test taking and things of that sort, and so that the security and identity management and being able to lock down devices is all there. And of course, the ongoing training of both teachers and students concerning how to conduct and take the online test is important. The State Ed Tech Directors Association has been very involved in this whole process and working both with the consortia who are putting together all the testing and so forth in the states, providing kind of the glue that puts a lot of that together, providing guidance and support. So they've been very involved in that. So I'm delighted to have Doug Levin on the call with us. He's the executive director there at SETDA, to kind of walk us through where things are and to try to help provide us some help and direction. So let me pass that on to Doug.
Thank you so much, Rich, for that introduction, and Bobby for the invitation to join this dialogue on Epic Ed. SETDA, of course, is a partner with CoSN, with the Friday Institute, the American Institutes for Research, the Grunwald Associates, and Forum One under an umbrella effort for the U.S. Department of Education, encouraging the use of online communities of practice. So we're really thrilled to see this community launch. Happy to cross-pollinate our communities. We run a community, in fact, called Assess4Ed. It's focused specifically on this topic, but it is one that deserves more attention, and it's not necessarily well understood what is coming down the pike for many of us, and what that might mean for you at the school district level. So when we talk about these Common Core assessments, in your state, odds are that you are participating in one of two new tests, and you'll hear them referred to this way. PARC, which is the Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or Smarter Balanced, the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortia. These are two assessment consortia that are receiving some federal support to bring together, in both cases, 20+ states, or about 20 states, to develop a common assessment to measure student achievement against the Common Core. Now, one of the things that's unique about this effort, in addition to it being multi-state, is that the system for both consortia are using is really a technology-based system. And by system, I'm very intentional in that word. It's not just that the test will be delivered via technology, but the items are being developed that way. There's back-end score reporting and integrations that are being worked on. And so this really reflects sort of the next generation of assessment that we see coming down the pike. And so I think, as Rich mentioned as well, we actually have seen some 33 states already doing some amount of computer-based testing in their state accountability systems. This effort through PARC and Smarter Balanced is a way to sort of accelerate a movement that is already underway. So again, that technology will be used to develop, administer, score, and report. Very importantly, there'll be new and innovative item types. So we have the opportunity now to elicit much more sophisticated understandings from students, measure higher order thinking skills through simulations, much more engaging item types, and item types that will work for a much wider range of students, including many students with disabilities who right now are exempted from state testing. So it's very exciting. And of course, there's also some work going on around interoperability, because for all of this to work across states and within states and across districts, we do need to make sure that we have a technical infrastructure that allows for that kind of sharing. Now, while there's a lot of work being done to develop these new assessments that will be administered for the first time in the 2014-15 school year, there is a strand of work that's happening that is focused on what people are terming technology readiness for assessment. And that's just to ensure that schools and districts have what they need, the infrastructure, the devices, the personnel, tech support that they have, that they have this in place at a local level, so they can just access, even get to the assessment technology itself. So the consortia worked together to issue an RFP to create a technology readiness tool. And this is a census survey of school technology. It's being employed, the same tool is being employed across both consortia, because even though their test design is slightly different, the mode of test administration via technology is the same. SETDA is advising Smarter Balanced and PARC in the creation of this tool. Many of our members are involved in the deployment and the technology readiness conversations in their states. Pearson was selected to be the contractor to develop this tool. The technology tool itself is being administered in waves, spring and fall. Between now and 2014, the first administration was this past spring. There'll be another data collection window in this fall. And over time, the sorts of information that will be collected will get much sharper as the consortia make decisions on the technology requirements that will be instituted. The first administration of the tool that was done in the spring was not a gap analysis. Ultimately, this will be a gap analysis tool, allowing districts to benchmark their progress against the requirements of the consortia. The initial administration was a census in order to help inform decisions by the consortia about those technology requirements themselves. I'll talk briefly about that in a slide or two. Just to give a sense of what is available through this tool, four items. The first, certainly devices, computers and other devices. The ratio of devices to test takers is essentially a simple math problem. Most schools will have a certain number of kids that they're needing to move through a testing window within a certain number of days, and so knowing the numbers of students to devices is quite important. Obviously, the test will involve some use of online technology. It is even if it is downloaded and cached before it's administered, it is important to ensure that the network can handle that load, particularly for interactive items. So we collect information on that. And then finally, information as well on personnel, the sufficiency of local tech support and other proctors or individuals like that. Rich mentioned that the consortia have provided some guidance to districts and schools about current technology purchases. Both consortia released their guidance in April this past year, so if you haven't seen it, you can go to the websites of PARC and Smarter Balanced and pull that down. But what I can tell you is that the guidance largely was the same across the two consortia, and virtually any machine that you were to buy today with about a 10-inch screen and any of the popular operating systems on the market today will be supported. So that includes, of course, desktops and laptops, as well as netbooks. It does include support for most tablets, and by most tablets, I'm talking about sort of the 9-inch or 9.5-inch class of tablets and up, as well as support for thin clients and virtualization. But there are some caveats to this purchase guidance. While this is frankly should be quite comforting to many of us on this call, the caveats are important to note. So that was for new devices. I had mentioned that the first administration of the Readiness tool is going to inform the support for legacy devices. Obviously, the installed base of technology is likely going to be what most people are dealing with. In this context, we consider those legacy devices. I will tell you that the biggest issue that folks are facing in decision with regards to legacy devices is Windows. It has to do with Windows XP or even older operating systems. National surveys that have been done by others on the dominant operating systems in K-12 schools today suggest that XP is quite a common operating system. But in the spring of 2014, Microsoft is going to discontinue support for Windows XP. And so there is a pretty serious question about whether or not the consortium will be able to support an operating system that its manufacturer will no longer be supporting. And certainly for those of us with a little bit more of an IT bent, there are some pretty serious security concerns as an operating system that is no longer supported by its manufacturer is required to be or allowed to continue to be used. Certainly would be interested in hearing folks' thoughts about Windows XP. Future field tests that will be done for both Park and Smarter Balanced are going to determine some peripheral requirements and accommodations for students with disabilities. It may be that for those of us who are deploying tablets, that a keyboard, an external keyboard may be required to be able to participate in the test, as well as some kind of a peripheral like a mouse or a stylus to enter in information or to be able to actually even use these interactive item types that may involve dragging or drawing or writing. So in many respects, it's actually quite exciting. It's also possible that folks may need to have a microphone and headphones to assess speaking and listening. I had mentioned caveats about new device purchases, and I think Rich mentioned briefly this notion of being able to lock devices down. And the security requirements for assessment are very serious. So it essentially comes down to two issues. One is whether the student is doing his or her own work or is somehow going out onto the internet or accessing some other application or communicating in some way in real time or in the case of wider assessment windows over time with other students. So is it the student's own work? But secondarily, there's the security concerns about the assessment itself. And it's important that assessment items do not get into the digital wild, if you will. So screenshots or printing out of assessment items is going to create a problem. And so devices do need to be put into what one might consider a kiosk mode. And so things like web browser access, camera, screen capture, any of the communication functionality and printing is going to need to be able to be controlled. And certainly, again, from an IT perspective, you'd love to do that at an enterprise level and not have to do that on a device-by-device basis. For those of you who are in states that are doing statewide computer-based assessment, most of you probably are not able to use tablets at this point in those assessments, and it is largely due to the security concerns that tablets have not been allowed. But the consortia are committed to working with the manufacturers to address these issues so that these devices that are used for instruction can also be used for these forthcoming assessments. So just in closing, I want to just leave you with three thoughts. One is this shift to computer-based assessment is already underway, and there are many, many, many advantages to doing so, from quick turnaround of scores to much more interactive and engaging items that get at higher order thinking skills, to frankly using the digital platform itself. So this shift is already underway in many places, and the assessment consortia are simply accelerating that for many of us. This shift to computer-based assessment is part of a broader shift in online learning, instructional materials, digital textbooks, professional development, and conversations about big data. It's really important that these conversations don't happen in a silo. So as you're thinking about being ready for assessment, it's important to be thinking about how you treat textbooks and think about digital content, how you think about access to online learning and professional development for your educators. So these are the same conversations. It is important for folks not only at the state level but the local level as well to have really good communication and coordination across all of these functions to ensure that the technology infrastructure can handle the direction that everybody is heading. And the last point that I want to underscore as it's an important one, and it's one that recently came to light. NAEP, what people refer to as the Nation's Report Card, recently did an assessment of student writing skills. What was interesting about it is the first time that NAEP had administered this assessment via computer. And one of the very clear findings, a crystal clear finding from that work was that students who had regular practice using the computer to write, to edit, to use word processing software, systematically scored higher on the NAEP writing exam than students who did not have access. And this included access in school and at home. So this really underscores a very important point, which is that we are getting ready, if you will, for digital assessment. But the first and only time that students are exposed to this type of instruction and learning and assessment cannot be in the assessment, during the assessment itself. It does require a broader shift in teaching and learning to using these digital tools, and that way when the students take the assessments, it is a fair assessment of what they know and not of their facility with the technology. So it's really important to understand that while assessment may be driving this, this is really about teaching and learning, and this is an opportunity to kick off a broader conversation about your goals and how to reach them. So with that being said, Rich, I'll go ahead and turn that back over to you. I do want to give one more plug for Assess for Ed. It's assessfored.net, and where you can learn more about what is happening and the decisions that are being made by the consortia and share ideas about how to get ready. And we really appreciate the conversation in Epic Ed, and it's something that we need a lot more people talking about and thinking about much more broadly.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, real quickly, a couple resources here. As we mentioned, the Assess for Ed is a great forum for discussion on these topics. Also, Epic Ed, a community of practice. Under resources, we have a little PDF paper that points to a lot of good resources and references, which includes both the Assess for Ed and the one listed at the top, the Technology Assessment Readiness Tool Training, and the work that's being done under the techreadiness.org are two of the key other resources that are pointed to. So a simple way to kind of get to all the resources or see all the resources is going to Epic Ed, the online community of practice. Click on resources, and then Common Core Assessment will bring up that document. And also on Epic Ed, we've got some discussions and some collaboration on this very same topic going as well. So let me kind of pass it on to Bobby from here.
Informative session this afternoon. I have to agree with my colleague Jackie, who the two of us here were looking at one another and smiling at the point about the acculturation of young people using the technology so that when they are in the assessment that the environment itself, the tool that they use, does not interfere with their ability to perform on the assessment. So some great stuff. We've got about a minute or so left. I just want to see if there are any questions from anybody joining us this afternoon. You can type those in the chat window, or if you have a microphone, you'd like to pose that audibly, just click on the raise hand icon and we'll recognize you. So any questions this afternoon? Okay, then if there are no questions, briefly just want to show you by taking you to the homepage of the Epic Ed website. You should be seeing that appear on your screen now. I want to bring to your attention from the discussions section, if you click on discussions, you'll see here all of the discussions currently taking place within the Epic Ed community. If you go to the second page of these discussions, you will see two discussions around Common Core assessment. The first one is Common Core assessment versus BYOD. The second one is Common Core online assessment project planning. Between Rich and Doug, they're going to facilitate those conversations. We want to keep those going for a couple of weeks. So we invite you to come here if there were questions you had or comments that weren't addressed today during the session, we ask that you go there and share your thoughts or ideas in those particular forums. Also want to take advantage of the opportunity to highlight a very special web conference tomorrow, a conversation with two governors, Governor Beverly Perdue of North Carolina and Governor Bob Wise of West Virginia, on digital transformation of education. This will take place at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. From the home page of Epic Ed, you see here the place where you can get more information. We ask that you would pre-register for that event. So that is a web conference from the perspective of two governors looking at digital transition. Want to encourage you, if you're not a member of the Epic Ed community, you can become a member from the home page. We want to thank again Doug Levin from SETDA and Rich Kaestner from CoSN. Ask everyone if you'll join me in a virtual round of applause underneath the smiley face icon in showing our appreciation for Doug and Rich this afternoon. I want to thank you and encourage you to join in the discussion. We hope that this has been empowering for you and will help you to better understand what's happening in terms of Common Core online assessment and how that relates to digital transition. Thanks so much for attending and have a great afternoon.